Today, I'm going to teach you how to create a chatbot app in minutes that will help the user to fill in a form. Because if you're making your users to fill in the forms the traditional way, you are living in the past. Adding a chat interface on top of that is a huge opportunity right now, so bear with me until the end to see the final result. The chatbot I'm going to show you is based on a chatbot app I just delivered for a client, and I see several applications and use cases for this, either to create your own SaaS or to create internal tools to help clients or employees to fill in a form properly. This is especially powerful with forms that have fields that are cumbersome or complicated to be filled in properly because they require technical knowledge, etc. So some examples of use cases that come to my mind is to use this kind of chatbot to help users to fill in immigration forms, legal agreements, or for example, employee onboarding forms. To create this application, I used Bubble.io for the user interface and database, and Relevance AI for all of the AI stuff. Basically, this is a simple use case just to showcase you the power of this solution, in where the user is going to fill in an hypothetical form before he takes a flight. The user is going to be filling in 5 fields: their name, email, phone number, the flight date, and whether they are going to carry a pet or not to the flight. For those who don't know me, I'm Jose. I have been developing apps for companies around the world for several years, and if you need help building your own application, reach me out with the links I leave you in the description. Okay, so first I'm going to explain you how I set it up Relevance. If you're new to Relevance, I really recommend you to watch a beginner's tutorial and then come back to this video. Basically, I created one general agent that is the one in charge of having the conversation with the final user, and a specific or specialized agent for every of the fields that the form is going to have. And I did this way because this way you can ensure that every agent can manage properly the task that you want him to execute. So for example, if you want the name to be in a specific format, you can give that information to the name agent, and he's going to ensure that the information is provided properly, or is going to give instructions to the general agent on what he should do. Of course, I'm going to leave in the description or in the first comment the links of every of these agents so that you can replicate them in your own project. So I'm going to walk you through every of these agents. First, the general agent, and if we go here, edit agent, core instructions. So you can see that I gave this agent the role to be handling the conversation with the user. I gave to this agent like a general understanding on what is his role into the entire application. So I told him that users will interact with a custom interface, the interface that we are going to create in Bubble, and every of the fields has a different agent in charge of each, so that this agent, that is the general agent, will receive updates or instructions of what every of the field agents did, and is going to have the conversation with the user, but the user is going to have like the perspective or the feeling that he is chatting with a person that is assisting them. So while in the background there are several agents that are executing different things on the application, the final user is not going to notice that, but is just going to notice that it's having a normal conversation. Then I give to the agent instructions of every of the steps that the app is going to go through. So first the user sends a message, then the Bubble application using an API call will send a message to the field agent in charge. Then the field agent decides whether to fill in the field or to request more information, and is going to give instructions or updates to the general agent. And here the general agent, in this case you, receive instructions and is going to convert that instructions into a message to the final user. And then this agent needs to use a tool that will send an API call back to our Bubble application with the final response. You can read this later with more detail. And here we have the two types of messages that this agent will have. One is when a user creates a new form. Once they create a new form, it is going to automatically start a conversation with all of the agents. So the general agent and every of the specialized agents will start a conversation once the user creates a form. And when a form is created, Bubble is going to send an API call with this message, start a conversation. But in this case, we don't want the agent to send a message back to our application. And the other messages that this general agent is going to receive are messages from the specialized agent or the field agents, and those messages will have the following structure. So in Bubble, we will have the form ID, that is the form the user is going to be filling, and the other message that this agent is going to receive is a structured message from the specialized or the field agent in charge at that moment. And that message will have the following structure, in where we have the form ID, that is the form the user is filling into our Bubble application, whether the app is in live or not, the message that the user sent, and the instructions or updates from the field agent. And the tools that this agent will be using is this one, is the responder tool. I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so this is the tool that this agent is going to be using, and basically is a tool that triggers an API call and sends a response back to our Bubble application. The fields that this tool has is the message to the user, the form ID, if the app is in live, and that's it. I created a JavaScript code that will retrieve whether this or this URL, depending if the app is in live version or is in test mode. And finally, the API call to our Bubble application that will call an endpoint to create the message. So next, let's go with the name agent. Okay, edit agent. Let's go to see the core instructions. And in this case, the prompt is a little different, because in this case, I didn't explain to this agent the entire logic of the application, but I just gave to this agent what is his job or his role into our application. So first of all, I told to this agent that he's in charge of the name field, that he is going to request to the user their full name, retrieve it using the name filler, that is a tool that will fill in this specific field into our Bubble application, and give instructions to the general agent. He's going to receive two types of messages. One is the start conversation and the other is the structured message. And finally, I gave him instructions on how he should send messages to the general agent, and that's it. However, I decided to include two notes because sometimes these agents don't behave the way you want it, and when you see that they are not executing the instructions you gave properly, you can repeat them at the end of the prompt and it tends to work better. Now I'm going to show you the tools. Basically, it's the name filler. That is this tool that will receive the first name of the user, the last name, the form ID, and whether the application is in live version or not. The same JavaScript code you saw before, and the API call to update the respective fields. And the sub-agents this agent have is the general agent, and I gave him instructions on how he should send the message to in the prompt for how to use this agent tool. So basically I repeated that here and in the core instructions of the agent. And in the flow builder, I just have two conditions. One is if the user gave his full name, or in the other case is in where the user didn't give any information about his name. So if he didn't give any information about his name, or not the full name, he's just going to send a message to the general agent requesting more information from the user. But if the user provided his name properly, he's going to use the name filler. This is going to fill in the field in our Bubble application, and then it's going to give updates to the general agent, saying him that he just filled in the respective field. And the next step, that in this case, if we go to the core instructions, he has to tell the general agent that the next step will be to ask the user to provide his phone number. Now I would like to highlight something, and it's the power of dividing every field in different agents and not having just one specific agent to deal with all of the fields. And that is because, for example, if we go to the phone number, edit agent, for example, here in the core instructions, you can provide further instructions about this specific field. And yeah, with a phone number it could be simple, but with a more complex field, like for example, I don't know, if the user is filling in a field about a crime, for example, that he committed, and he has to fill in with what kind of crime he committed, maybe the user don't know what kind of crimes are there. So we can provide here in the prompt more context on how this agent should guide the user to fill in this field properly. So for example, if I go to the flight date, edit agent, in the core instructions is that this agent needs to ensure that the date that the user is giving must be in the future. So if the user gives a date that is in the past, the agent is going to request a date in the future. Okay, with that said, I'm going to go to the tools section and explain you what tools you are going to be using. Basically, we will have triggers, fillers, and a responder tool. The triggers are tools that we will use in our Bubble application to continue the conversation with a given agent, depending on the stage the user is at a given moment. So for example, if he's filling the name field, we're going to be triggering the name agent trigger. But if we are in the flight date, we are going to be triggering the flight date agent trigger. The fillers are tools that every agent will use to fill in their respective field, and the responder tool, as I mentioned it before, is the tool that we are going to use. It's a tool that the general agent will use to send a message back to our Bubble application. Now let's go to Bubble and I will show you how I created this application. Basically, you will have to install these three plugins. First of all, the API connector, then the CSS tools, and the repeating group to chat reverse group. Once you have them installed, let's go to the API connector and you will have to create two APIs. One is the relevance initiators and the second one is the relevance continuators. So I'm going to walk you through the process. Let's do this. Relevance initiators. You'll have to add two headers. One will be the content type, that will be application JSON, and the second one, the authorization header. And basically, this group of API calls will initiate the conversation with every of the agents or relevance dashboard every time a user creates a new form. So they are going to be created in bulk. Let's create the first one, and I'm just going to create this first one because the other one is just to copy and paste and to change some of the values so that they adapt to the respective agent. So in this case, I'm going to create the general agent initiator. This is a post API call. We are going to use this as an action, and this field, to fill in this field, you have to go to your relevance dashboard, go to the general agent. Here in edit agent, you go straight to this button and you copy this API endpoint and go to your Bubble application and paste it. Now let's go to the body of the API call. To this, I'm going to copy and paste the one I created here. Copy this and paste it. Basically, this you extract the body of the JSON from Relevance 2. So you go here and copy this and paste that in your Bubble application, but ensure you put here start conversation instead of hello. And I'm going to initialize this so that you see that this works properly. And once we initialize this API call, Relevance is going to give us the conversation ID. This ID is the one we are going to store in our form so that we can continue with the conversation. And if we go here with the general agent, we can see that we just started a new conversation here. Start conversation, and he provides us this message. Okay, and this is the same with every of the agents. You just have to add another call. Let's say the name agent. This is a post API call. It's an action. You copy and paste this trigger. You copy and paste this API endpoint. Paste it here. Copy this same body of the JSON, paste it here, and you just change the agent ID. So you go to your Relevance application, go to the name agent, edit agent, click this button, copy this, and paste that into the bubble application. Initialize call and save that. And repeat the same process with all of the other agents. I don't going to do that because I already have them created. So I'm going to delete this API, and now I'm going to teach you how to set up the relevance continuators. In this case, with the relevance continuators, we're going to be triggering the trigger tools that I showed you before instead of triggering the agents directly. So let's add another API, relevance continuators tutorial. Okay, we have to add the same two headers we added before. So first of all, I'm going to expand this. You have to add the content type is application JSON, then the authorization, and you add the API key that Relevance provides you. To see this API key, you just go to Relevance and click in generate a new API key, and Relevance will give you that API key so that you can copy it and use it in Bubble or in the application you are connecting Relevance with. Okay, I'm going to copy this and paste it here. And now the same, but we don't have to add the general agent because we are not going to be sending any more messages to the general agent apart from the one that starts the conversation. From now on, just the specialized or the field agents will be sending messages to the general agent, and then the general agent will. So basically the user sends a message, the message is sent through the trigger tool to the specialized or the field agent. Then the field agent decides whether to fill in the field or not and give updates or instruction to the general agent, and the general agent communicates with the user using the responder tool, telling him what to do next. I did that way because the general agent have the context of the entire conversation, while every of the specialized agents just have to deal with their specific field. So this will be a post API call to the name agent. This will be an action, but in this case we are not going to go to the name agent but to the tool. So let's go here, you search for the name agent trigger, and here you click in use, then API, and you copy this endpoint and paste it here. Now in the body you will have to include every of these parameters that you set it up while you were building the tool. Basically you can set as many fields as you want, but in this case I just set the form ID, whether the app is in live mode or not, the prompt or the message from the user, the general agent ID, and the name agent conversation ID. So let's go to use API. You copy this and go to your Bubble application and paste that here. So when you paste it here directly from Relevance, it gives you this JSON body that doesn't look very good. So I'm going to delete this and just copy that from the name agent that I created before. That is basically the same, but is more readable. Okay, for every of the fields that are going to send a value, I set it a variable that I will be able to change in the workflow that activates this API call. So I am going to uncheck all of these checkboxes so that I can change the value from every of these values from the workflow. If you leave it checked, you are going to be unable to change the value of every of these fields. And I am going to copy and paste the response that Relevance give us. You can copy and paste this same response. So Ctrl+C, and I go here, manually enter API response, save this. Okay, and you do the same with all of the other trigger tools that you have. So the only thing that you have to change is the name of this value. I changed it depending on the agent that was dealing with the conversation. So for example, in this case is the name agent, but if we go to the phone a number agent trigger, and if we see how I named it, it is the phone number agent conversation ID. You click Ctrl C, and when you are creating the API call for that specific agent, you just have to change that here, and that's it. So you repeat this process with all of the agents, and that way we are going to be able to continue with the conversations from our Bubble application. So let's go to the database. I'm going to delete this. And let's go to the database. You will need to create a form data type and a message data type. The form data type will have an ID, every of the agents, and the fields. So for example, with the name field that is divided into the first name and the last name, we have the first name, the last name, and the ID from the name agent. The same with the date of the flight, with the pets, email address, and the phone number. We have the phone number and the ID of the phone number agent. And with messages, you just have to create three data types. You just have to create three fields. So the first one is the form, the second one is the message, and the third one is an option set that I set it here that will have two values, basically a bot or a user, indicating if the sender was the user or if the sender was Relevance. Okay, and by default I set it that as user. And then let's go to the design of our Bubble application. After you set up this database structure, go to the backend workflows, and we are going to create 5 backend workflows. The first one will be the agent's initiator, in where you will have to include all the API calls from the initiators of every of the agents that we are going to be using. So in this case, I'm going to include the general agent, the name agent, etc. Here I have the general agent API call, then the name agent, the phone number agent, all of the initiators that are going to retrieve the conversation ID. And then you include here make changes to a form, because in the API workflow you request the form. So here we are going to change some values from that form, and the values will be every of the IDs from the agents, another field that will indicate to the application if the user can start chatting or not. So if we haven't stored all of these IDs, it doesn't make sense to make an API call, because we can't send the ID of the conversation that the user is going to continue, and this way we prevent the user to use the chat until we have stored all the IDs of the agents or of the conversations. Then the create a message. This is the API call that the responder tool will be triggering. So we go to the tools here and we see the responder tool. You can see that I am calling the create message workflow, that is this one. And this workflow will request the form and the message, which will be the form will be a form type and the message will be a text field. And we will create a new message with the form that Relevance provided, the message, and the sender will be a bot. And then I divided some of the fields in a specific workflow and others were grouped here. Why I did that? So with this field that is the pets filler, in this case the user indicates whether he's going to carry a pet or not. So it's a yes no value, it's a boolean value. If you have several boolean values, or even if I include that value here, when the app updates, for example, let's say that this value of pets were here, and if we were updating the last name field, I did that this way so that the fields are populated properly. And with boolean fields, that is the case of the pets fields that indicate whether the user is going to carry a pet or not to the flight. Because it's a boolean, when you update other fields like here, there is no way to ensure that this field is being restored. So I decided to divide it, and basically we have the pets filler, which updates the pets value and increases the step of the form in 1. Then we have the flight date filler. The first thing this backend workflow does is that he validates if the flight date provided from the user is in the past or is in the future. So if he recognizes that the flight date is before the current date time, he's going to send a message to the date agent again, so that it informs the general agent to inform the user to provide a date in the future. But if the date is in the future, he's going to store that value and to add a step to the form. Basically, the steps in the form are the way we know in which field we are currently. So the first step is the name, the second one is the email, and so on. I'm going to explain you that better when we are creating the interface of the application. And then we have the update form. The update form workflow that will have the form, the first name, last name, the phone number, and the email address, and it's going to update those fields. And I did that validating first if that the field of the workflow is empty. So if it is empty, I formatted it as text. So if the response is yes, it is going to repopulate this field with the value that the form had before. But if it is not empty, it is going to store the field that the workflow provided. And the same with all of the others fields. So for example, the email address, validate if it is empty and format it as text. This way we ensure that, for example, if we are in the email agent and he decides to fill in the field, he's going to update this field, but is not going to provide all of these other fields, so they are going to be empty. And if we don't make this validation, it is going to delete the values of every of the fields. Okay, so now let's go to the design part. Before we continue, you are liking this video, I am sure you will like other videos that I uploaded before, so make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit that like button so that you don't miss future videos I will be uploading. Back to our Bubble application, you will have to create two pages. The first one will be a forms page in where we are going to store all of the forms that we will be filling and create new ones. So let's add a new page, tutorial, and create it. The first thing I'm going to do is to change the background color to this one. Then I'm going to add a header, set this page as a column, container layout, okay. Uncheck this. I'm going to set this as 50. This will be a row. Now let's add a group in where we are going to have the logo, and into this group I'm going to put a text and an icon, and this group will be a row 2. Okay, set this in the middle too, fit with the content, and check this and this, and I'm going to add padding, 10 in the top, 10 in the bottom, 20 in the left, and 20 in the right. Check this, and the bottom right will have 20 pixels of roundness, and let's set the background style as a gradient with a custom direction. The starting color will be this one. You can select it as your taste. The other color I'm going to select is this other one. Okay, the text, I'm going to set this color, and I'm going to put this the flag. Okay, and the icon, I'm going to remove all the paddings, 0, 0, 0, and 0. Let's click on this group, add space between elements, 10 and 10. Okay, and this icon will be plain, this one, and let's set the color as white. Okay, perfect. And now I'm going to add a link. Let's create the flight bot page, create it. I'm going to go back to the forms page, and this link will lead the users to the forms page. And let's add some padding at the left and at the right, and let's set this way. Now here I'm going to add a space between elements of 20 pixels, and I'm going to add a button that will have a margin at the left of 20 pixels, I think. This is the button that will create new forms, so I am going to put here create new. Okay, and I'm going to set this color. Perfect. Now I'm going to add a text that will appear to the users when there are no forms created. So I'm going to paste this text. Basically, it is telling the user that you currently don't have any form, so create the first one. And I'm going to add the same margin as I set it for the button, 20 pixels. Okay. And now let's add the repeating group. In this case, the data type will be form, and it is going to search for forms and sort them by their created date. Let's set this as yes. Set 20 pixels of margin in the right and in the left. Uncheck this and uncheck this. Remove the values from these fields. I'm going to set 5 columns and unlimited rows. Now let's add a group inside this. Will be named each form. Okay, let's add a background color, a roundness of 10 pixels, paddings of 10 pixels in every side, and in the bottom add 5 pixels of margin, and in the right 5 pixels too. And in the repeating group put 10 pixels here. Okay, every of these elements will have two texts. The first one will be the date of creation of the current form, and Control D. The second one will be the first name of the user. Okay, and let's add some space between elements. Let's set the size of the texts. This will be 10 pixels and this other one 14 pixels. And I'm going to add a canvas placeholder, so this is the date and this is the name. Perfect. Now let's add a condition to this text. Uncheck this and copy. Okay, when this repeating group list of forms count is 0, this element is visible. If not, it is not visible. Let's test this. Okay, we have to set here a conditional. When the current form name, first name, is empty, the text will be new form. Perfect. Okay, I just deleted all the forms I had created before, and so that we start from 0 here. So let's create the first workflow. This is the create new form button, so create new form. I like to name the elements that trigger a workflow with the action that they are going to perform. So this way we can just by seeing the name of the workflow know which element is triggering it. Okay, so the first action we're going to perform is to create a new form. So let's go here, create a new thing, a form, and that's it. And next we're going to schedule an API workflow, and this will be the agent's initiator. We're going to provide the form we just created, and the schedule date is the current date time, so current. Okay, perfect. And it is going to initialize all of the agents. And the next workflow will be this one. Here is open form, add a workflow. Here we're going to go to page, the flagbot tutorial, and the data to send is the current sales form. Okay, we're going to have this error, but it is going to be fixed once we start working with the form bot. Now let's go to the flagbot tutorial page, and the type of content will be form, and we just fixed the issue that we had. I'm going to add the same background color. It is this one. Perfect. Now let's go to the forms bot. Now let's go to the forms page. Let's take the header copy with workflows, and let's go to this page, set this as a column and paste it. Okay, perfect. We're going to set 20 pixels of gap between elements. So now we have the header, and I'm going to create the body of the chat. So let's add this group, will be the chatbot body. Perfect, this will be a row. Okay. Now we're going to add the first column of this row, and this will be the form, so that the user know in which step he is currently standing. The max width will be 300 pixels, and let's set this vertical alignment. The roundness will be independent, and the top right will be 20 pixels. I'm going to set a flat background color and set this blue one. Let's add some padding of 20 pixels on each side. Padding the bottom side 10 pixels. Then add a title here, fields 14 pixels, bold, and let's set this as white. Now let's add other group inside this one. Group, okay. And this will be the fields container. Perfect. Okay, let's set each border independently, and the top one will be solid and white. Okay, and now let's add each of the fields. Okay, I'm going to set the gap between elements of 5 pixels, a top padding of 10 pixels. Now this will be the name field, and it will be a row. Okay, I'm going to add a text to this field and an icon. The icon will be a circle and the text will be white. Okay, and this will say name. Let's set this to 14 pixels. Set this container alignment. Okay, and to the icon, a padding of 5 in each side. And to the field container, 10 pixels of padding in the left and in the right. And now you can just copy and paste this 4 times. Okay, this will be the phone number. Let's change the name of this container or group. Now this will be the email. Okay, the flight date, Control-C, paste it here, and the pets field. Perfect. Now let's add some conditionals to every of these fields, so that the user knows which field he is currently filling, and change these icons when that field was correctly filled in. Okay, so let's start by changing the background color of every of these fields. So when the current pages form, step is 1, the background color will be flat color and the background will be white. Copy this and paste it here. Add 2 here, in this case it will be 3, and so on. Perfect. Now let's set the roundness of 10 pixels on every of these fields. Okay, and copy this condition and paste it in the name text, but instead of changing the background color, change the text color. So in this case, the text color will be the same color as the background of this group. So I'm going to copy this value and paste it here, and the same with the other texts. And the same process with all of the icons. Okay, now I'm going to add other condition in where the icon will change when that field was filled in. So when the current forms, in this case first name, is not empty, the icon will be this one. Copy this condition and paste it here, but in this case it will be the phone number, and so on. Okay, I think that we just finished with this group. Let's go to the chatbot group. So now let's go to create the chatbot section, the chatbot group. So this is the chat container. Okay, let's set this vertical alignment. Now inside this one I'm going to add the input container, and inside the input container the group input. This will have 600 pixels of maximum width. Remove this, center it, add some roundness, the background of flat color, and this color. Perfect, this should be centered. Okay, let's add padding 10 pixels at each side. Perfect, and let's add a multi-line input. Okay, let's remove all of the borders and set the color of this of the font as this one, a minimum height of, I don't know, 40 pixels, and uncheck that. Okay, now I'm going to create the button to send the message to the agent. So let's create another group. Okay, set this as a row, set a gap of 5 on each of these fields, and this will be the send buttons container. Perfect. Set this as 40 by 40 pixels, and I like to put that stick on the below side. Okay, the container alignment of the chat container must be this one, and let's start adding the buttons to send the messages. So the first button will be this one, just an icon with this icon, 40 by 40, 10 pixels the roundness, and a gradient color, custom, and I'm going to set the same colors I used in the logo. Okay, let's add a condition when this button is being hovered. Add a shadow and change the background style, flat color, the background color to white, and the icon color to this one. Perfect. And the other condition will be uncheck this, and to that this button is just going to appear or to be visible when we are in the stage or in the step 1 of the form. So we are going to have a different button for every of the steps on the form or every of the fields, and that button will trigger a different agent. Step 1, oh my gosh, this one, oh yeah, is visible. Okay, and let's Control D and create one for each of the steps, and just change the step in where every button will be visible. And 5. Perfect. Now I'm going to add an icon that will indicate the user when Relevance is still processing the message and he is waiting to receive a new message. So this make the icon rotate, and I'm going to finish the setup of this button later. So I'm going to hide this button and just set the vertical alignment to this one. Now I am going to create two texts that the user is going to see when he hasn't sent any message, so he knows what to do. The first one will be this. I'm going to center it to add 10 pixels between elements. Let's set the color of this text as this one, 18 pixels, bold. I'm going to set it bigger, 24, okay. And the second text will be a smaller one with this message. I'm going to set this a little bigger. Oh no, I'm going to leave it at 24 pixels. And this one as 14, this one too. Okay, so if we preview this application, I'm going to create a new form, click here, okay. Before we continue, we had to create another text. Here, this text will indicate to the user that the app is still setting up their form. So this will be only visible when the current form ready to start is no. And when it is yes, this one will be visible. So let's set this here and uncheck this. So I'm going to go to the forms section again, create a new form, click this, and as you can see, Relevance is creating all of the conversations, and once he created all the conversation with every of the agents, the app is going to allow the user to start typing. Let's go with the chat container that will have all the messages of the chat. Uncheck this. And here we are going to put this element which will reverse the direction of the repeating group that we are going to put here, so that it looks more like a chat. And let's add a repeating group. Okay, a maximum width of 600 pixels, center it. I'm going to remove this, uncheck this. This will be all the messages. Do a search for all the messages that are on the current form and sort them by the created date as yes. Okay, I'm going to group this repeating group in a group that is going to contain it, because this plugin reverses the direction of the repeating group, but it doesn't scroll properly. So I recommend you to group the repeating group that is going to be affected by this element that is from this plugin. I really recommend you to group that repeating group into a group. So I'm going to group this into a column container, and this container will fit the width and the height node. Let's put this as 600. Perfect. So we are going to scroll through the group and not through the repeating group. Now let's add a text. And this text will be the current sales message, a size of 14 pixels, a background color white, and the roundness will be 10 pixels. Let's add padding, 10 pixels on each side, and the background and the font color to this blue. Perfect. Now we need to add a conditional when the current message sender is the user. The horizontal alignment will be this one, and the background color will be this one. Perfect. Now let's add a conditional to this group. it is going to be visible when the repeating group, oh my gosh, when the repeating group list of items count is greater than 0. It's going to be visible. If not, it is not going to be visible. Okay, let's test it here. Perfect. Okay, I think that's it on the design part. Now let's start with the logic part. Add a workflow to the step 1. The first step will be to send a message, send name agent. So we're going to create a new message. With the value of the multi-line input, and the sender will be the user. Now let's reset the relevant inputs and set the name agent trigger. So the form ID will be the current pages form, unique ID. This one, in this one I'm going to add a condition. It will evaluate if the app is sent in live version formatted as text. So if it is sent in the live version, it's going to send false. But if it isn't in the live version, it is going to send true. The message will be the result of the step 1 message. The general agent ID, let's copy this, paste it here, and it will be the general agent ID. And here we will set the name agent ID. And let's do the same with all of the other buttons. So let's go with the second button. This will be send message to the phone number agent, and a workflow. Copy this event, paste it, copy this other event, paste it here. I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and I'm going to add the continuator of the phone number agent, and copy and paste this one too. Here is the result of step 1 message. Copy this, and here we have to set up the phone number agent ID. Delete this. Perfect. I'm going to copy this, paste it here, but in this case set this for the next button. Will be Ctrl+C. Here, change the button that triggers the workflow, add the proper relevance continuator, in this case the email agent, and copy and paste all of these values. Copy, paste it here, copy and paste, and the only one we have to change is the email agent ID. Let's go with the next button. Change the button that triggers this action, add the proper continuator, and populate all of the fields. Delete agent, remove this. Okay, and the last one, copy, paste. Okay, Ctrl+C. The same thing here. Or in this case with the pets agent ID. Okay, I'm going to create a new folder. It will be the triggers. And I'm going to set the colors to blue. Okay, now we can start testing this out. I'm going to set the maximum, the min height as 600 pixels. Okay, I'm going to say hi and let's see what happens. Okay, we call the API call. Let's see what Relevance responds to us. Okay, we have to change some things. Let's go here with the chat container. Copy this and paste this condition on these texts, but uncheck this checkbox so that they hide when the user sends a message. The next thing is to add a margin to this text, so the margin will be 5 at the bottom. I'm going to add a maximum width to every text as 80%, and we need to copy this and paste it in the repeating group that will be affected on the ID attribute. So now I think it should be displayed properly. Okay, and I'm going to add to the chat container 20 pixels at the bottom. I think it is looking better. So it is asking me to provide my full name as it appears in my passport. So I'm going to just give him my first name to see what happens. So hi, let's say I am Tony. Hi, I am Tony. It's going to ask me to provide my full name. Yeah. So, hi Tony, could you please provide your complete name as it appears in your password? So I'm going to say, okay, my full name is Tony Stark. And as you can see, it filled in the field and advanced. And now we are in the phone number step. If we go to the database and see the form we are currently filling in, you can see that we have here Tony in the first name and Stark in the last name. Let's go to the next step, that will be the form confirmator. So chat container is here. Okay, now we are going to add other group here. We're going to add other group here that will be visible just in the last step of the user. Okay, I put this group not in the proper part. Okay, I'm going to create this group that will be the summary of the form, so that once the user finishes all of the steps, he can confirm if the fields that the AI filled in are correctly populated or correct them if not. So this will be the form summary, and it's going to be visible when the form step is 6. And to the chat container, it is not going to be visible when the form step is 6. Let's hide this. Okay, set this vertical alignment, 20 pixels on the bottom, left and right. Add another group here. Check this, set 20 pixels of roundness, a flat color, and a shadow style of outset. Here 0 and here 0. And to this group I'm going to set 10 pixels of padding on each side. Let's add this text, confirm. Oh my gosh, I'm going to set this color to this text, set this as 18 pixels. Okay, let's add a gap between elements of 10 pixels to this group, and let's add another group called form fields confirmator, and let's add a button here that I just copy and paste this button but basically it has the same style as the center button that we had in the input. And so you just have to put here a button, put here this text and this icon. Let's continue here and check this. And this big group is going to contain all of the fields that the user is going to confirm or to change. Let's add a space between elements of 5 pixels, and the first one will be the name confirmator. I'm going to set the background color as this one, 20 pixels, 10 pixels of padding on each side, then a label that will indicate field is this one. In this case, this is the name. Let's put this bold in 14 pixels. Then I'm going to add a group that is going to contain the inputs. So this will be a row with 5 pixels, and let's add an input. Okay, flat color, 20 pixels, 40. And duplicate this. This will be the name, first name, and this is the last name, and this will be the current forms, last name, and the current form, first name. And now copy this, paste it here, uncheck this. Let's change this icon to this one and click here in save changes. So this button is not going to be displayed or visible when the page is loaded, but some of the values of these inputs are different from the ones that are stored in the database. So let's add a conditional when this is the input name, this input is the last name. So when this value, when the value of the name is not the current page's form, first name, or the last name, the input last name value is not the current page's form, last name, this element is visible. And you have to basically replicate. Okay, let's add a workflow here, and this will update the values. So make changes to a thing, the current form, and the fields to change are the first name and the last name. In this case, this will be the input name value here, and here the input last name value, and that's it. So you just have to replicate this same functionality for all of the other fields. You duplicate this and do the same. So as you can see, I just have changed the background color, and I did the same on every of the fields so that the user can confirm if they are correct or not. We just finished. This button is basically this confirm, info, and continue button is basically a decorative button. You can decide what to do next, if they have to pay to store the data, or if you redirect the user to a thank you page or anything. So let's go and test everything. So this is the final result. Let's test it out. Create a new form, click here, and here we have the fields we are going to be filling in. Okay, hi. Now the app is going to ask us for the name as it appears in the passport. Let's say, hi, I am, I don't know, Tony Smith. Now it's going to ask us for our phone number. So let's say my phone number is, and put a random number. And because this is not a valid number, it is going to request us a proper valid number. So as you can see, it recognizes that this is not a valid number, so we have to provide a valid number. So let's say +1 and send this. Now it's going to ask us for our email, so we're going to say I am Tony, send this. Now it is going to ask us for a flag date, so let's say I am 2026, send this. And because this is a date in the future, it is stored the value, but if we had sent a date in the past, it will request us a date that is in the future. Now let's say yeah, send this. And as you can see, we cannot send any message until Relevance respond to us. So now it filled in all of the fields, and you can check out all the fields that you just sent to the chatbot. For example, here the chatbot added these characters, so I'm going to delete that, save changes, and yeah, that's it. If you want to create your own application similar to this one or other one and you need help with that, reach me out in the link I leave you in the description and I can help. I really hope you like this video. Check these other videos on my channel, I am sure you are going to enjoy them.